Joseph W. Brady tells a story that everyone interested in political party unity and loyalty should hear, lengthy and detailed as the story is.
Terry, it's really a sad story, and it's a sad story because I think you sometimes have people that will hide behind what they think is the truth, or they give the impression to the public that they're one person and they're not. So you and I remember the race in 2019 and 20 on the CSA 64 issue in Spring Valley Lake. Let me kind of back you on up. It was August of 2019. It was the last weekend of the month. Deb and I happened to be in Prescott, Arizona. And it was a Friday night, and I got a call from a young man by the name of Dakota Higgins. Dakota, at that time, had been working for Congressman Cook, and we would get together every couple of months and have breakfast or lunch. I really liked him. I thought he was a great young man. I thought he had a lot of skill, and he was going to go places. He facilitated while he was working for the congressman. We had a private lunch at Spring Valley Country Club one day, and Paul and I were able to talk about all kinds of things. So he called me that Friday night, and he said, "Hey, the rumor's out that Robert Lovingood's not going to rerun for supervisor, and we're kind of testing the waters and blah blah." Well, that Sunday night, it was about 6 o'clock, as I remember. I'm actually going to have my phone. We're going to download that conversation and remind him what was said. He called me, and I was sitting in the hotel room in Prescott. Deb was on the bed watching TV. We were about ready to go out to dinner. And he called me. He said, "Hey, I want to let you know that the field's been cleared," he said, okay, so that nobody's going to run against Paul Cook. And I said, "Well, that's not true." Okay, so I'm sitting here, Deb's over there, and I said to him, "I may run." And all of a sudden her ears perked up. She wasn't overly happy about it. And he said, "Oh, no." He said, "Jimmy Previty with Frontier Homes guarantees that he'll win." And I said, "He won't win." And I said to him, I gave him a comment about Paul from a political standpoint, not as a personal comment, but and I said to him, "If I run, I will kick his bang." And so we get done. That's the last time, Terry, that I remember ever talking to Dakota Higgins. So we go from that to the election, and Paul wins. During that time, I hear through the grapevine that Paul's upset with me. I have no idea why. Okay, politics is a tough sport. Okay, and I would think, okay, he's a former Marine. I went to a Marines military school. He's a Christian, supposedly. We just have a different opinion. I think I can beat you and you can beat me. Hey, we get in the boxing ring and somebody's going to walk out the winner. That's what it is, okay? I came from competitive sports. Someday you win and someday you lose. Never had an issue with him personally. So from that time, I reached out to then Supervisor Don Rowe, who I knew and respected, and she had worked with Paul, to say, "I don't know what the issue is here. Can you broker a meeting?" Well, she tried all kinds of stuff, and I think she finally gave up. And then, through people I knew within the area, they told me when Paul gets upset with somebody, he just gets upset and blah, blah, blah. Well, finally, about a year ago, okay, so we're filming this now on October 4th of 2022 when it gets played. About a year ago, I finally thought, you know what, I have sent him numerous emails to his office. I've contacted Tammy Godfrey down there, who's like their executive secretary, and a real nice lady. Tried to get a hold of Dakota Higgins multiple times. Couldn't get anybody on the phone. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll try a different approach. I'll write Paul a letter and I'll send it to his house in Yucca Valley. Well, Paul knows, like anybody, we have nothing but data in here. And, he's no different than I am. I'm an elected official. If somebody doesn't like something, they can send me a letter. So I sent a letter to, I believe I addressed it to both him and his wife. And immediately I get a phone call from a guy by the name of Tim Tierney or something, INTYRE or whatever. And he calls, he said, "Joe, I'm his chief of staff." Well, I didn't realize. I actually thought that Dakota was his chief of staff. I thought when they made that transition that it was appropriate for Dakota to kind of move up and blah, blah, blah. Well, he said to me, he said, "No," he said, "I'd really like to meet with you." So we agreed to meet, within a very short period of time over at Panera Bread in Victorville. And he came over and he sat down and he said, "Hey, we just can't keep dealing like this." And I had a very man-to-man conversation. I was very clear with him. There was no doubt when he left that if you really are here to bring peace, all we got to do is sit down and meet. I've reached out by text, by email, by phone calls. They're all documented. And every time I made those phone calls, what do you think you do? You make them from your cell phone, because then people can't say that you can't, or you text message. So that means it's never happened. So then going back to the 2020 deal, we all know what happened. Rory had a committee of, I think, 23 people. Steve Garcia, a guy who I really like, was on there. There were Bo Gourlay. There were people I knew for a long period of time that were on there, and it was an honest disagreement about the direction of Spring Valley Lake, and do we need more government? There was nothing wrong with the job that Steve Samaras and his great employees at CSA 64 were. What they didn't figure out was this. There was a gentleman by the name of Luther Snokes, S-N-O-K-S. Luther's a really nice guy. He was the head of special districts. He had taken over for Jeff Rigney, who was a friend of mine who left. And every time I heard Rory or Jim Carr or Paul Stanton or Steve Garcia or Bo Gourlay or anybody on the committee give a presentation or put something out, I had it checked. Okay, I read the feasibility reports, I read LAFCO reports, I read the whole 9 yards. When they went to LAFCO, which is Local Agency Formation Commission, that was a slam dunk. I mean, even Lovingood that day kind of had to poke at me and Katrina Sieverts, and get his point across. And it's like, okay, Robert, we understand this is loaded. His office put up the money, or the county put up 25 grand. So we get an election. Okay, we create a website like everybody else. They created a website. We put all our stuff on websites, and we sat down and we interviewed with you like every 2 weeks. And what we did was every question that came to us, we sent the question. See, they never figured this out. This was real simple. I would send 10 questions down to Luther Snokes, and what would he do? We would put question, he would put the answer, and Pam would just cut and paste, but we never altered anything. So at the end of the day, by a 2-to-1 vote, okay, we didn't win. We sent a strong message, not only to the county that the people were happy, but that they didn't need a new board. They didn't need people with new, benefits and health insurance and stipends, and every time you go to a meeting, you get $100 and all that kind of stuff. We didn't need it. We didn't need a new office. Steve Samaras and his crews are doing a great job. And 2-to-1, I mean, I just recently looked it on up. We won with 70%. Well, what was interesting about that vote that year, that was the Trump vote. So 88% of the registered voters, I think there were 5,800 in Spring Valley Lake, voted. It was like 81% though voted for the CSD issue. Okay, so there was 8% that just said, hey, I'm just not going to be involved. And we got 70%, and Rory and his team got 30%. Well, I went back and looked at it recently. It was more than 2-to-1 of what we got. So that was November of 2020. I've known Shannon for a long period of time. I remember back, I think it was in 2015, that she had an interest in getting involved with the College Foundation. I knew her well. I respected her. She came from a Big 8 accounting firm. So her and Deb and I and Rory went out to Spring Valley for dinner. I think they even came over once for dinner at our house. And I strongly encouraged her to get involved in the board. We then had an issue that's coming to light real soon about a pension issue within the foundation at the college, and that I think that kind of really kind of challenged our relation, because she had friends that were impacted by it. But long story short, so we go through the election in 2020, and in December of that year, she called me one day, and she was not happy. And I understand why. She said, Joe, you lied about my husband. I said, Shannon, no. I said, your husband lied to you. I said, I really hate to tell you, your husband lied to you. You did not do your homework. You thought you guys did your homework. You thought that by putting 23 members on a committee, you thought by putting Robert Lovingood and Paul Cook on a mailing piece, you thought by raising $40,000. I mean, Terry, the first donation that they got, I asked Bo Gourlay, who was, I think, their treasurer, who the guy was, and they couldn't tell me, and I think it was a $2,500, and he was in the underground business. So you can't go to your supervisor who shepherded the applications through the county, and then Congressman Paul Cook, who was then becoming Supervisor Paul Cook, put their name. They did 3 pieces of mail. We did 2. We raised $10,000. I put in $8,000. That's how strongly I felt about this. But we had a great group of volunteers. I mean, Marty Kiefer and Cheryl Bluey and Ted Marshall. We had a whole bunch of people that really cared about the community. And as I stood out in front of the post office, 2 or 3 times for 2 hours at a time, I could hear that people were not happy about this. I sat down the morning before the vote with my good friend Norm Hurst, who's deceased, and everybody knows how much I admired him. And I met with him and his son, because they wanted me to talk to Rory. This is the morning before the LAFCO vote. And I asked Rory Panera Bread, I said, Rory, pull the application. Let's worry about Spring Valley Country Club. We got to get our arms around that. The association's having a challenge. They're going to off that country club. And do we need more government right now? And you know what? He looked me right in the eye, just as smug as he could, and thought, Brady, I'm going to beat you. No, okay. So sometimes people don't understand that when you get smug like that, that's probably not real good, because I probably don't care for that. So now let's go to August of this year. Terry, I'm proud, and if people are watching this or Democrat, this is not intended to be a Republican or Democrat deal, but this is kind of how politics can really work. Came here in 1988. I was invited a month later to the college to meet with a bunch of like-kind, younger people that wanted to form the San Bernardino County Young Republicans. We did that with the help of then Jim Brady, who ultimately became an assemblyman, a senator, chairman of the California Republican Party. And we did it. He was a field rep for Chuck Bader at the time. And we formed it, and we had Doreen Dominguez, whose father owned Veneer Construction, and we nominated her as our president. And we ran it for 3 years, and the whole idea was just to get a good group of young people involved in politics throughout the county. Then somewhere in around 1996, 1997, on my patio with my good friend at that time, Robert Lovingood, Paul Russ, I think John Cummings, there was Brad Mitzelfeld, who worked with ultimately became supervisor, Bill Postmus, who became supervisor. We know what happened with him, and Keith Oberg. We formed the Lincoln Club of the High Desert, and we ran that for 3 years, and that was good. So fast forward to this year. So in 2012, 2016, 2018, I was given an automatic endorsement by the San Bernardino County GOP because I was an incumbent, and I think I had done a good job. I helped raise money. I support local candidates and all that. Well, so this year comes, and I get in the latter part of July, I get notified that they want you to come on August 20th to do an interview. I said, okay, great. So I'm contacted by 3 of the clerical people at the headquarters to be sure I was going to show up. I had talked to Ryan Sorba, who is their executive director. I understand he's no longer there, about a preferred time at 8:30 to speak, because I had a client coming on in that I needed to attend to, and I needed to get back on at the pass. So I got a total of 7 phone calls to reconfirm I was going to show up to speak at about 8:15 that morning. So it was down at the Doubletree at the Hilton. There was an accident on the freeway. I contacted Ryan, told him I'd be about 10 minutes late. I showed up, and the executive director, the chairman, a guy who I thought was a friend of mine, Phil Cothran, was there. Phil is well known in Fontana. He's probably the chairman of the chamber, the Rotary. He's been the chairman of the San Bernardino County GOP. And 2 years ago, when he came up here and spoke to the High Desert Women's Federated, I pulled him aside and said, any help I can give you, I will. I've got a list of 1,300 donors in the Republican Party that I'm willing to share. I'm not going to give you a list, but I'll give you the printers to help kind of bolster what we're trying to do, because we had really 2 clubs. You had the High Desert Women's Federated, which Cheryl Bluey, our good friend, is very much involved in, and just a great bunch of people. And then you have the other one, the Victor Valley Republican Group, that was run by Shannon and Smitty, Becky Otwell, and those guys. So I get down there, and when I walk in, there's a table with all your name deals out, and I go to look for mine under Brady, and I can't seem to find it. So I thought, well, that's kind of weird. I get 7 phone calls to come down here, but I bump into Phil. And Phil, I had seen him the day before at Bob Dutton's funeral, and I didn't really put 2 and 2 together. So I've known Phil Cothran for, I think, 29 years. We sat on the San Bernardino County Workforce Investment Board. I always liked him. We had a monumental conversation at the college last year with him and Dr. William Sterling, with Dr. Daniel Walden, about monies that the county, I think, should, and I'm still going to pursue it, have put into a building that we have out at SCLA. He came up and told a story, and Dr. Walden was fascinated and said, hey, I never knew that side of the story. So I kind of saw this body language with him, which I thought was kind of weird. And then I came to find out, I think he was a little upset because Ryan didn't show up on time, the executive director. And then so they had a stage already, and they had probably seats for 150 people for candidates to get up and speak. So I was one of the first people, so I got up, 3 minutes, you got some questions, and I walked off the room. And with that, I didn't think anything about it. About a week later, I reached out to Ryan, and I said, when are the endorsements going to come out? I thought this was kind of weird that I kind of went through this process, especially with our track record of what we've done at Victor Valley College, and I think what I've done on Peer in creating 10,000 jobs, blah, blah, blah. He said, I'll just have to get back to you. Well, long story short, I came to find out that not only, Terry, did I not get the endorsement, but check out how the votes went. I got 3 votes yes, and 35 votes no, and 3 people didn't vote. And why did that happen? So, Dakota Higgins, who is apparently the chairman of our district, so within the county, you have delegates, and you have the first district. So in the first district, you have Shannon, you have Dakota Higgins, you have Rebecca and Eric Swanson, who I know well. Got a couple other people I just can't think of right off the bat. And you have five regions, and then they have the delegates. And if they can't, Smitty's one of the delegates. And if the delegate is not there, then they have they have a delegate can vote for them. So don't think anything of it until somebody tells me not long ago, Joe, in closed session, Dakota Higgins stands up and bashes the hell out of you, says you do not support the San Bernardino County GOP. You talk badly about them. I'm thinking, well, where do you have this in writing, Dakota? Huh? So I think what happened was somebody thought, or he thought, okay, as well as Shannon. So apparently Shannon said to people, Joe Brady lied about my husband. Okay, well, I'm not there. I've supported the party, gave them money 2 years ago when Jan Leja did it, and kind of walked away and thought, wow, this is kind of weird. So I could tell, now going back in time, the body language with Phil when I got there was kind of odd. The body language that he had at Bob Dutton's funeral the day before was odd. I mean, we've always had a good working relationship. And then to find out that 2 fellow Republicans, okay, I don't have to like somebody, but I would never take, and what's worse is that it was a political payback, and I understand how that works. But do you do that for somebody that is trying to protect your local community college? You don't do that in your own party. Okay, if you have an issue with somebody, you pull them aside and say, listen, I can vote, I can support somebody I don't like, but I know how to support that out. So the moral of the story here, I'm going to decide after you send me the clip, do I send this to Dakota and say to him, I guess about 2 weeks ago, I texted Dakota, I was a little upset with him, and somebody said that he took it and put it on Facebook. So now we're going to be sure, Dakota, here's what the facts are. So let me tell you what we're going to do. We've already got the data for and I've got 1,200 people here. So it's easy to send that list to our printer and send out kind of a narrative of this. Okay, I've got probably 1,000 emails. So imagine I take this video, send that on out. I don't want to do that. But Terry, I will say to you, and I will say to my wife, Deb, and my office knows this. Shannon, I have reached out to you and to Rory. I've reached out to Rory probably 10 times on text. I've reached out to him multiple times on email. I have pleaded with people like Brian Hurst to facilitate a meeting. I've even talked to my friend Steve Garcia about it in Spring Valley Lake, and there's absolutely no reason Rory wants to sit down and talk. I wrote an email the morning after the election in 2020 to the committee members, and I said to them, this issue is over. We now need to move on to the country club. We need to work together, but nobody wanted to do that. So are we going to look like the Democrats fighting all the time, or are we going to figure out a way to come together? So I'm hoping, and I'll think about this. Do I send this video to Dakota and say, Dakota, I mean, we're going to go big? Because the facts are the facts. My phone will back it up. My phone still has your August 11th, I think 7:30 phone call of 2016, the year that I stepped on myself with the presidential comment. I've still got your voicemail right there. You know, the one where you were telling me that Shannon or David Greiner were going to try to run against me. I've got all that. And then Shannon ultimately admitted what went on. I think it's time that we put this together, and then just a nice big apology. You know, probably, and I'd come down to the GOP and send out a nice apology and say, we don't want to do this. And I'm most disappointed, candidly, in my friend Phil Cawthon. I like him. I even heard through a third party that he's got people in his office that just say, hey, don't pay any attention to Joe Brady. He won't even return an email, a text, or a phone call. So that's kind of the stupidity. Where this is going to go, Terry, I don't know, but it's one thing I'm not going to forget. And those that know, I will never go out and pick a fight. But if you pick a fight, we're going to finish it out. So.